guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Franca and I'm glad you're here. Obviously, we're going over the Blake and Justin lawsuit again, so let's jump right into it. First, we have a document, I guess, about what they agreed on. So the logline reads, "It ends with us, the first Colleen Hoover novel adapted for the big screen. Tells the compelling story of Lily Bloom, Blake Lively, a woman who overcomes a traumatic childhood to embark on a new life in Boston and chase a lifelong dream of opening her own business. A chance meeting with charming neurosurgeon Kyle Kincaid, Justin Baldoni, sparks an intense connection. But as the two fall deeply in love, Lily begins to see sides of Ryle that remind her of her parents' relationship. When Lily's first love, Atlas Corrigan, Brandon Sklenar, suddenly re-enters her life, her relationship with Ryle is upended, and Lily realizes she must learn to rely on her own strength to make an impossible choice for her future." Directed by Justin Baldoni and produced by Alex Sachs, Jamie Heath, Blake Lively, and Christy Hall. The film stars Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni, Jenny Slate, Hassan Minhaj, Amy Morton, Brendan Sklenar, from a screenplay by Christy Hall based on the book by Colleen Hoover. Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni are starring in the film adaptation of Colleen Hoover's highest-selling novel It Ends With Us. This is the first film of the Colleen Hoover phenomenon to be adapted for big screens. She is also executive producing. Justin Baldoni is also directing and executive producing, as well as starring. Blake Lively is also producing. Brendan Sklenar is perfectly cast as the charismatic Atlas, who brings an impressive emotional depth to the role, along with Jenny Slate and Hassan, who both bring compassion and humor to the film. Teen versions of Atlas and Lily are played by up-and-coming actors Alex something and Isabel Ferrer, who delivered exceptional performances. It Ends With Us is a big, emotional, complicated story about breaking free from the past and empowering yourself in your future. The character of Lily Bloom has resonated with so many readers because her journey is relatable. Her story isn't black and white. She has to make hard decisions that have lasting consequences. This is a story about Lily's journey from leaving a small town, moving to Boston, and embarking on a whole new life, empowering her to stand up to adversity. It's more than just a love story or a love triangle. It's the story of Lily learning how to take agency of her future. After growing up in a hometown where Lily witnessed her mother being abused by her father and vowing never to be in that position, she enters a relationship with Ryle and unwittingly finds herself following the same footsteps as her mother. Through this journey, Lily must learn to stand up for herself and that the true strength lies within. The book connected with millions of readers and became a rare phenomenon in the publishing world. Everyone knows someone who has read this book. After becoming a book talk cultural phenomenon with over 2 billion views on her TikTok hashtag, Colleen Hoover is currently the best-selling novelist in the US with over 25 million books sold by the end of 2023. Hoover wrote 5 of the top 10 best-selling printed books of any genre in 2022. Published in 43 foreign languages, It Ends With Us was a top-selling print book of 2022 and has been on the New York bestseller list for over 135 weeks by the end of 2023, which one of those numbers counts for me because I bought the book. And if you want to see my reaction to the book before this whole mess came up, I'll link it up above. But I hated the book. I liked what they were trying to do with it, but I hate the actual book itself. What to avoid. Focus more on Lily's strength and resilience as opposed to describing the film as a story about DV. Empowerment is not just about standing up to adversity, but also having the power to overcome within oneself and grow from it and develop agency to shape the future. Avoid talking about this film that makes it feel sad or heavy. It's a story of hope. Avoid talking about the film being representative of every woman's story. There are so many stories of DV, and this is just one perspective that is inspired by Colleen Hoover's own experience growing up. And I think that's where they got into the most trouble. As much as I feel like the story is about hope and you want to focus more on that, the hope doesn't come without the trauma from that experience in a sense. And I feel like also a lot of people that were part of that have had DV, and then they say if any questions about the story not being an authentic representation of DV, tell them. This is just one perspective that is inspired by Colleen Hoover's own deeply personal story of growing up in Texas. Any questions about the lack of diversity in the cast? We have such a wonderful cast who all bring something unique in telling this powerful story of one woman learning to take agency over her future. I am so proud to be part of this incredible group of women who have made this film that is inspired by Colleen Hoover's own deeply personal story of growing up in Texas. Overall guidance. Keep in mind that the journalists only use a small portion for their final pieces, so we need to provide sound bites and at most 2 or 3 sentence answers. Anything longer will be cut or misconstrued, especially given this sensitive topic and how quickly out of context answers spread on social media. You can still get your messaging across just with carefully chosen words. While it ends with us as an emotional, complicated story, it is also about hope and breaking free from the past and empowering yourself in your future. We want to focus on the positive elements in interviews, discussing abuse, how abusers or the abused are perceived outwardly, takes us down a path that is not only dark but will detract from the primary messaging. Digging too deeply into personal stories will not only take time, but they will not be picked up by the media and will go unused. It also opens the door for journalists to direct the conversations away from the movie. In fact, okay, we're finally back to the complaint. In fact, against much resistance from the film's distributor, Baldoni from day one made it clear that he was making this film to bring awareness to DV and would not refrain from doing so when promoting the film. He did not go rogue, as Lively alleges. So we have a text from Justin. Good morning, team. So I was thinking about the response to this weekend, and I feel like what we should do is make sure to empathize the voices of survivors. It's going to be a lot of buzz how much money the movie made, but I want to be the one that always direct. But I want to be the one that always direct the back to the survivors. So I would love to come up with some sort of video or carousel of messages for survivors and the response to the film. While in Sweden, celebrating his wife's birthday, Baldoni was informed that Lively demanded he not attend the film's premiere on August 6, 2024. Lively further threatened that if Baldoni attended the premiere, she and the majority of the cast would boycott. It remained unclear what Lively had communicated to or promised the cast, but they now also refused to attend if Baldoni was present. The fact that Sony advised Wayfair to concede underscores Lively and Reynolds' immense power and influence. See, what I want to know is, did they actually say that they weren't gonna go if he was there, or was she just using that as, I can get all of them to say they don't want you there, kind of thing? You know what I mean? Did they actually say, did they go to Sony and were like, hey, if Baldoni comes, we're not going? Or is Blake just saying that? You know what I mean? Baldoni and Wayfair refused to succumb to the bullying tactics aimed at excluding them from the premiere of their film, a project they had financed, produced, and owned, marked the year-long campaign of intimidation, harassment, and civil extortion. Although objectively egregious and shocking, the Wayfair team had unfortunately grown accustomed to the bullying, fully aware of the immense power this couple wielded and the far-reaching extent of their influence. However, they refused to give in to this entirely unreasonable demand and valiantly searched for a compromise with Lively so that they could attend the premiere of the film that Baldoni had directed and co-starred in, and that Wayfair had co-financed and produced. Heath moved mountains to negotiate a scenario that Lively would permit, with help of Sony, as Lively refused to speak to anyone connected with Wayfair. Just days before the film's premiere, Baldoni was still unsure if he would be allowed to attend. His friends and family, most traveling from outside of New York, were left in limbo, unable to finalize travel plans or book flights. Baldoni did the best he could to hide his pain. Despite still not having seen the final cut of the movie, he co-starred, co-financed, and directed. He wanted to celebrate the years of his work with his family and friends. Baldoni to editor 2. Long story short, but we won't be in the same room. I was asked to not even come to the premiere. I can figure it out. Justin says, well, if you decide to change your mind last minute, let me know and let's figure it out together. I'm gonna be there, and that's just different timing and holding areas and theaters and all the things you can imagine. It's still our film. Editor 2. It would be very hard for me to sit and watch the final film for the first time at the premiere. Just cheer for us when our names come up. Sending all love. Okay, yeah, I haven't seen it either. Finally, through Sony, Wayfair persuaded Lively to permit Baldoni and the Wayfair team, along with their friends and family, to attend, though only under demeaning and humiliating conditions. They were relegated to a separate theater to view the film, required to arrive at a different time than the rest of the cast, and instructed to leave the red carpet immediately once Lively arrived. Baldoni was also excluded from the official celebrity after-party, despite it being an event ultimately paid for by Sony and Wayfair. As a result, Baldoni had to quickly organize and fund a separate after-party for himself and the Wayfair team, forcing the company to cover the cost of 2 events, one for Lively and everyone else, and one for Baldoni and Wayfair's own friends and family, crew, and team. Upon arrival, Baldoni began participating in red carpet photos and interviews, absent the presence of the remainder of the cast. However, his time on the carpet was abruptly cut short when it was conveyed that Lively was on her way, and he was instructed to stop immediately. He and his family were quickly ushered away, security personnel acting as though there was a risk of escape, escorted Baldoni's group to the basement of the building. There, they were confined to a makeshift holding area surrounded by concession stand stock and only folded-out tables and chairs arranged in a square. Surrounded by close friends, family, soda bottles, and a lot of love, the honor of being held in a basement on what was arguably one of the most important nights of Baldoni's career thus far was not lost on anyone. And then we have some photos of them posing with literal stacks of water bottles. It's crazy. Once the main theater was deemed clear of Lively and her guests, Baldoni and his group were ushered into a separate theater to view the film. At the conclusion of the screening, they were again quickly escorted out of the building by security to avoid even a chance of interaction with Lively and her guests. The Wayfair after party, held separately from the celebrity event and attended by crew, family, and other Wayfarer friends, was a dry gathering, in part to acknowledge the known negative relationship between alcohol and DV. It was attended by the entire Wayfair team from Los Angeles and their friends and family. The atmosphere and tone of the Wayfarer after party were aligned with Baldoni's vision for the film, focusing on celebration and gratitude, despite being humiliated. In the meantime, Baldoni was sidelined as Lively and Sony pressed forward with their promotional strategy for the film. By contrast, Baldoni's marketing plan, outlined in his initial proposal to Sony years prior, shared with Lively and communicated numerous times with both Sony and Lively, centered on the partnership with the organization No More. Founded in 2013, No More is a global initiative aimed at raising awareness, inspiring action, and sparking conversations to end DV, and Wayfair's collaboration with the organization began in 2022 and held deep personal significance for both Wayfair and Baldoni. Staying true to his purpose for undertaking the film, Baldoni prioritized amplifying the voices of survivors of DV. His efforts reflected the heart of the film's story and its profound impact on audiences. He returned to the core reason for embarking on the project in the first place. His initial outreach to the author of It Ends With Us 5 years earlier. Focusing on the film's message and its potential to create positive change, Baldoni poured himself into ensuring its success despite the mounting challenges. These genuine efforts aimed at amplifying the voices of survivors impacted by the film were later mischaracterized and weaponized against Baldoni. In the end, empowered by her celebrity firepower and her powerful allies, Lively did exactly what she set out to do. She took someone else's movie for her own, destroying years of creative vision and carefully planning in service of her own brand-building campaign. But why would Lively even seek to seize power over the film? Why would she insist on taking additional work for no additional pay or credit? On information and belief, Lively may have been motivated by a number of factors. She may have wanted to seize control over the film so that she could take over production of the sequel, It Starts With Us. This motivation also explains why the cast, who may have hoped and or been promised a role in the subsequent productions, would choose to side with the powerful couple, who themselves may genuinely believe they could destroy Baldoni and Wayfair and force them to cede or even sell the rights to the sequel. Or Lively may have felt driven to match her star husband Ryan Reynolds, who is widely reported to have insisted on taking so much control of the film Deadpool 2 that the director Tim Miller left the production. Seeing the fame and success that Reynolds commanded, she may have adopted his oft-repeated pattern wholesale to seize her own power and control, following his lead and evidenced by many statements by Lively that he is involved in every project she works on and vice versa. Lively and Reynolds, accustomed to getting their way, perhaps felt entitled. Perhaps of why Lively insisted on seizing control of the film. That is precisely what she did. There was no justification for her and civilly extortionate tactics deployed to grab complete control over the film. Lively also sought ultimate control over the film in hopes of boosting her own brand and business ventures. In the end, though, Lively's own words and promotional strategy led to an avalanche of negative press. Starting at least July 10, 2024, Lively's social media posts promoting the film maintained a light-hearted, frothy attitude, depicting Lively in glamorous and floral-inspired couture, highlighting high-end brands like Chanel and Christian and Louis Vuitton. And then they have some of her posts, like Lively says in her caption, "If the audience had half the amount of fun we did, we're gonna put theme parks out of business. In 20 years of doing this, I don't think I've ever experienced anything quite like surprising 205,000 fans with early preview of It Ends With Us movie. To everyone who showed up in their floral jeans alongside us, including Brandon, jeans handmade by me and Isabel Ferrer, Colleen Hoover, being mother in every way, turning it out for everyone at Book Bonanza." And then we have another one. "It's not ever lost on me that I get to play dress up for a living. It Ends With Us movie, 1 week away." And we have some more posts. "Flower Fashion Time, Atlas's Living Room Edition. I would say something more interesting, but it's 2:23 a.m. and I need to sleep. If my alarming sleep deprivation in order to post floral fashion doesn't tell you how much I care about It Ends With Us movie, I don't know what does. That doesn't tell me you care about the movie. That tells me you care about the floral fashion. Which reminds me to mention the floral stems on these heels are insane. I wish I had a better picture. K, getting a life, or at least some sleep. Bye. Then we have another one that says, this dress is 30-year-old. This dress is 30 years old, but doesn't look a day over 25. More. Oh my. Blue Jean Baby, New York Lady. It Ends With Us, August 9th. They're very much all just like photos of her in floral outfits and like floral backgrounds. The last one says, a month of flower fashion has begun. Let's be real, I only do these press tours so I have an excuse to scrapbook, bake and make flower arrangements while laughing with my friends. Let the joy begin. Lively, freely interspersed posts about her new movie with ads for her new hair care line, Blake Brown. Upon information and belief, the launch of Blake Brown was timed to coincide with the film's release in hopes that cross-promotional opportunities would boost sales for Lively's new brand. Alright, we're gonna end it there. We're gonna get into Blake Brown in the next episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to leave a like and comment down below. If you didn't, feel free to leave a hate comment. I'd love to hear your opinion, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.